the mother of all crimes that is being committed under our very noses. The destruction of America by Barack Hussein Obama.
The acoustics aren't very
Yeah,
well.
they're quite useless.
I want to know of your opinion on
I think that there's a political unveiling taking place that obviously groups like this are a pretty new phenomenon, and I think it's a reaction to some of the changes that people didn't expect, the voters didn't expect. I think for a variety of reasons, the news media, we give the media the First Amendment, benefit of the First Amendment, but there are increasing questions about whether they're playing the game fairly or not. The Gallup poll each year measures public support for 16 different American institutions. Last year, number one was the military. Number three, America's police. 60% of the public had great trust in the American police. The newspapers came in 10th. 25% of the people had trust in the newspapers. And so I think you're beginning to see this growing resentment that we don't mind the newspapers voicing, or the media voicing editorial support, but they're beginning to do it in news reports, and they're hiding certain facts and truth from the public. And increasingly, the public is turning to blogs and to other forums, to tea parties, to things like this, because they feel they're being ostracized. And I'm not going to bash the President of the United States. I'll say this to you: pray for him every night, because Joe Biden's next in line. Behind him is Nancy Pelosi.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me, Chief? Great. You can hear me now. You can hear me now. Great. Currently, there is debate in this nation as to whether TSA employees should be unionized or not. And on the right, the Republican Party in the Senate is taking a stand that that's a bad idea. And I have to admit, it's an attractive position that it's a bad idea. And yet, I think that our police in almost every major city, if not all major cities, are unionized and do a pretty darn good job, 60%, as you just cited. So isn't a fair comparison to compare unionization of TSA with unionization of our police?
No. If I didn't offend some people tonight, I'd feel I'd really turned into a failure in life. At the beginning of the war on terrorism, wrote an article saying that the baggage checkers at the airports should not be government employees. And that was based on my experience as police chief of San Jose. One of our off-duty officers went to the San Jose airport to greet some relatives and absent-mindedly walked through the metal detector with his Glock pistol, and it didn't go off. So he came and he reported it to the department, and we decided to test the security, which was run by the airlines, who hired private companies to do this. And so over a period of weeks, we ran officers through there with knives, with all kinds of weapons, and only 2 or 3 were detected. And I called the FAA and I said, hey, look, you have a problem. The security at these facilities is very, very weak. And they're not even picking up loaded semi-automatic pistols. And the FAA said to me, you've committed a felony. You violated the federal law on bringing weapons into an airport. So naturally I turned to the city attorneys and they said, well, they're right. So I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll bet you the best dinner in town that I will not be indicted, and if I'm indicted, I will not be convicted by a jury in this country. And I then held a press conference, and Mayor McNamara demanded that San Jose police take over policing the airport, which we did. I wish I could say that I cured the problem, and the reason I wanted them to be run by private corporations is because if they didn't do their job, you could fire the corporation. But once they become federal employees, forget about it. Now they have become federal employees, and some years ago there was an effort to create unions for the FBI and for the military. And I'm not against unions. I was a policeman for a long time before we had the right to a union in New York City. And we had a slogan, nothing is too good for the men in blue. And that's what we got year after year, nothing. So the unions have a place, but they don't have a place when it comes to national security in terms of terrorism at airports and in fighting the wars in our military. Our military do, of course, have the military code of justice and rights, by the way, that we were willing to give to terrorists in military tribunals, but apparently the ACLU and the administration doesn't think that's enough, so we're giving them full constitutional rights, and they're going to end up in Illinois. I personally was voting for them to be housed in Nancy Pelosi's district, but no one listened.
Chief McNamara, thank you for your time here. Getting back to the concealed carry question, concealed carry permits. As a police officer and your stories, I can understand your bias against people, citizens having guns. You have had an entirely negative experience with that. But if you were to find evidence, studies that actually prove that concealed carry reduces crime, increases public safety, increases your safety, people protect police officers with concealed carry, would you be willing to revise your opinion?
You know, I just have stayed away from the gun issue since I retired because there are plenty of very articulate police chiefs and police organizations which speak on this issue. And I have to tell you truthfully, my experience through the years talking about it, I only got into it when Officer Joe Tamarick was shot with an Uzi in the Red Lion Hotel, and the California police chiefs asked me to go to Sacramento, and I came under so much vilification and attack and so on and so forth that I simply don't get into it anymore. I understand where people feel on it, and my experience is you're not going to change anyone's mind at this point in time. They feel the way they feel. If you want to listen to law enforcement, you'll get different opinions, but it's not my job anymore to talk about that issue or to